Start. Get started. Recording. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Samina, you want to start?
Yeah. Om Parthaya Pradibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Krititam Puranamuninam Matye Mahabharadam Atvaidaamritavarshinim Bhagavadim Ashtadashatyayinim Ambatvam Dadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadvekshini Namostu Devyasha Vishala Buddhe Pullaravinda Yatabatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pratibha.
Madhuri?
Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vaitrekapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita Duhe Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.
Chandra?
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः.
So we are now, really looking into the deep part of the entire philosophy, and 13 chapter is really a gateway to this aspect of Asi part of the Tattvam Asi, right? So Lord Krishna had completed really out of the 6 questions that Arjuna had asked, 4 topics he had completed. And now we are in that section where he's explaining what is Purusha and what is Prakriti. Typically, these two terminologies you really won't find too much in Vedanta as such. It's in Sankhya philosophy, it's used really extensively. But here we can actually look at correlating these two terminologies to essentially what is Brahman for Purusha and Maya for Prakriti. Okay, so just to give you that analogy. So we had we did all the shlokas, which we also reviewed last time. And then from 19th onwards, we are kind of entering, because we are finishing that portion of before, and we are coming into that aspect of the Purusha and Prakriti. So the way this part has been devised in this 13th chapter, we did the Jnanam, then we learnt about the Nyayam, and this section that we are entering into, we really wanting to know what is it about us that is keeping us where we are. At the highest level, we know that we are that Brahman, right? But somewhere along the way, we have lost that ability to know who we are, and therefore we are in bondage. So this is part, this phase 3 part of it is where we are actually working on right now with understanding this. So, in shloka number 19, the significance we discussed about is that, it really tells us thoroughly about really what the jnanam is, what the nayam is, and what is nayam. Nayam is the objective or the goal towards which we are going, right? But there is not a whole lot that we still know about that jnata, that is the knower of the subject who's really pursuing this. And this is where, when I say we are getting deeper and deeper into the well, we are finally trying to understand who this knower is of this field. Okay, who is this Purusha, if you can say that? And this is very important because all our life we spend our time only enjoying the outside. We have never really understood who we are. If only we understand who we are, that itself is a huge, it will solve almost every problem in the whole world. Like we always bring mental health into the picture. This entire aspect of mental health, this entire aspect of psychology itself will not exist if we really know who we are. It's only because we take on these different roles, we take on this different identity, and then we function in this world of Maya or Prakriti, whatever the terminology we want to use. Therefore, we rarely really have the time and energy or effort even that we take in order to understand who we are. So this is why this 13th chapter onwards is very, very important because it really exposes to that aspect of who we are. And this is why this section, as I said, this is the phase 3 section where we are understanding what is bondage and how we got into bondage. So, in order to understand how we got into bondage, this two terminologies, which is Prakriti and Purusha, out of the 6 questions that Arjuna asked, is actually very important. So, in order to understand this, let's actually connect this to the two other terminologies which you came before, which is Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So, Prakriti can be sort of connected to Kshetra, the field, because we all are working in a certain field to exhaust our vasanas in the form of thoughts and desires, right? So this that is the kshetra part of it, and this is can be kind of equated to your prakriti. And uh, Purusha, in some ways, can be connected to this knower of Prakriti, the knower of the field. So that is the Purusha aspect. So we'll try to, I just wanted to link those two for you. And from 20th onwards, we started looking into this Purusha and Prakriti. So in 20, basically, he's trying to explain how how this whole aspect of bondage or samsara begins. How is it that we fall into this trap? You know, Unknowingly, we are falling into the trap, and it's amazing every day if I don't pay some attention or if I'm not alert on how my actions are, I will see that I'm in an autopilot mode, I do everything. On one hand, it's very good that, we have habits which are aligned in such a way that we are doing the good things. But unknowingly, we are also sometimes doing things which maybe we can improve on, right? So that samsara has those boundaries of habits and everything. But I need to really understand in and through everything I do as I'm, going from the womb to the tomb, so to speak. Or in Bhajagovindam, we talk so much about the birth and the death cycle and everything. So it is really important for us to understand this between the birth and the death, how this bondage has come out to be. Okay, so the shlokas 24 to 26, which we'll cover today, we'll actually understand that a little more. So, Prakriti and Purusha, it says Prakriti in 20, Prakritim Purusham cha eva, Vidyanadi Ubhavapi. So, somebody may ask, so what came first, the chicken and the egg story? If you look at many of our Darwin's theory of evolution and everything, we will say that, okay, in the beginning, there was nothing, and then everything started with the Big Bang, the Big Bang theory or whatever, right? But in our scriptures, we feel that, we know that there was no such thing as a bang. It was always there. It's just that we go through the cycles called pralaya, right? So that is why he says prakritim, which is the entire world, of matter, that as well as the thing that is enlivening it. What is it that brings it to life? Last week, we discussed about this one example of, what happens when a train is going at a high speed and on the rail itself, there is, on one of the rails is a stone and on the other rail there is, say, let's say a worm or something like that. Even the worm will sense that something is coming fast and it will start moving away, whereas the stone will not, right? So, what is it that gives that life? What is it that makes things really move and, give a sense of awareness, sense of enlightenment? That is the Purusha aspect of it, or we would say consciousness and everything. So, this both of them have been anadi, it is beginningless. So, and in the second part of it, he says the modifications as well as the qualities know them to be born of the matter itself. Okay, so Purusha as such, we will see how the Purusha gets into the matter in the shlokas which is coming up. But here, he's saying the modifications, which is the vikara, as well as the qualities, the gunas, they all are nothing but born out of Prakriti. Okay. And so we saw what the six vikaras are last time, which is, starting with Jayate, Vardate, Viparimate, and then Apakshiyate, Vinashyati, and then Vinashyati, which is death, right? And it starts with the absolute existence, then the birth. So this is the six modifications of the human body, and then the next one, which is the gunas itself. All these are the part of Prakriti itself. So Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanati Ubhavapi. So we have to know this. And then, sorry, I think it's coming probably. Okay, then we moved on to shloka number 21, where we are trying to understand what are the constituents of this Prakriti. Okay, Karya Karana Kartatve Hetu Prakriti Uchyate. So, what is Prakriti? Prakriti is the one where there is a production of the effect and the cause. So, matter in the case of anything where there is this modifications. Okay, in all this, Prakriti is the cause. It is the cause, and that is basically you can make the connection between what is Kshetra and what is Prakriti. So from Prakriti, everything really comes all the way from the gross elements, starting with the elements, and from there to all the physical bodies that is there in the form of almost, you're trying to say about the stones, the trees, the animals, the birds, the human beings. So from that whole thing so those are all the effects of Prakriti itself. Okay. However, we need something to support this whole existence, and that is where the Purusha aspect comes in. So Purushaha Sukha Dukkhana Bhoktritve Hetu Uchyate. So ultimately, what is it that brings a lot of joy and sorrow? So here we are saying that ultimately it is that enjoyership of the every modification that is happening is attributed to that Purusha. Okay, so the both this Bhoktritva as well as Bhoktritva, which is the enjoyership of the Sukha and joy, Sukha and sorrows, all that is connected to the Purusha itself. So when we say, of course, bhoktritva, this have happened. This is in all the three states, whether it's awakening, sleeping, and dream state, and all this. It requires a certain amount of awareness, or what we call this as sentiency, right? So inert objects cannot experience any of this for this reason. So the key point which is out here is that the field cannot be experiencing, the kshetra cannot be experiencing anything. All that is the effect of Prakriti. The field has to be regarded as actually it's very inert. So the attribute or we attribute Purusha as a person to who's enjoying this whole thing. So this whole thing actually last time itself we discussed about how through this example of the movie theater on which we explain what is Prakriti and how is this Purusha example. We did that last time. So we'll move on to then we did the Shloka 22 where here we said how do we really connect this Purusha and Prakriti. So we used this boxing example where you have the coach and you have the two boxers, and the coach is like a witness as a sakshi to the whole thing, whereas the boxers are the ones who are uh, going through that whole game in as an analogy to what the samsara is about. So in samsara, we are identifying ourselves with the role and we are going through and playing the whole game itself, but the coach, he remains completely unaffected by the whole thing. So we did that. Then we started to talk about about this Shloka 23 last time, but this is where we kind of stopped. So in a sense, what is Lord Krishna doing here? You know, he's getting us to slowly understand really what is bondage, right? In order to understand this bondage, we have to understand that we are at the end of the day there's two personalities. One is that absolute reality of Brahman, and then the roles that we are playing, right? So Krishna is really taking us through this training program, and he's training us to sort of detach ourselves, lot to literally, we're so identified with who we are, what our roles are, and he's trying to see how we can disidentify ourselves from the um, sort of the prakriti upadi that we are all wearing, and to identify ourselves with the purusha aspect. Okay, so Krishna is, he will say in this shloka, Asmin Dehe Purusha, that Purusha Tattvam, which is that absolute awareness. Okay, that Purusha, we don't have to go anywhere else, it is right within us. So just like, for example, we have in every container, like even this coffee cup that I'm having, we have the cup and then we have the coffee inside, right? So, but even before the coffee, there was always space. So too, this every matter which is there in Prakriti, every even let's take a human being. In a human being, we have this body, mind, intellect. It has also this. We have within us, this is for lack of better words, I'm using this. We are also the Purusha in the form of Sakshi, just like that example that I gave you of this boxer and everything. That Sakshi Chaitanyam is this Purusha. And what is the nature of it? It is actually very quiet, opposite of the nature of Prakriti. Prakriti is like full of energy, moving around everything. But Purusha is Sakshi. Purusha is just a witness, like that example what I gave. So, Upadrashta Numanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha Paramatmeti cha Paramatma iti cha api yuktaha dehesmin purusha paraha. So there are like 6 names. He has now come to explain what this purusha is. So the purusha is the spectator or sakshi, a witness, upadrashta. Then Anumanta is also the one who is a permitter, and we'll come into discuss each one in depth, what it means. Uh, And why do we have to know about all this, right? One may say, well, the reason is because it is all talking about me. You know, this is who I am. This, I may be playing certain roles when I'm in the world of Prakriti, right? So today we tend to identify ourselves only with those roles as a mother, father, and the roles what I play. And then everything I'm just catering to that. But in reality, I am actually even beyond that. I am that Upadrashta. I am that Anumanta. I am the supporter of the entire universe. I am that great Lord Maheshwara, Bhokta, and I'm also the enjoyer. You know, as a Purusha, I'm enjoyer of all this. And here, when we say Purusha, it is not the masculine Purusha that we're talking about. It is talking about that absolute reality. And ultimately, on top of all this, I am that Paramatma, iti cha api yuktaha. And that Paramatma, which is in the form of that Purusha who is in this body. So this shloka is actually also a very important shloka, which actually gives you the um, truly as to who I am. So, it is literally, I have to, um, so far, I'm so much entangled in this world. You know, um, it's a complex process of entanglement. I get involved with something, then I get involved with some of the problems, and in the problem, because I have misunderstood who I am, I get more and more and more deep because I'm so attached to whatever happens, and that total entanglement, now I have to disentangle it and understand this is who I am, and therefore this phase 4, which is knowledge of truly who I am, is coming, is what this 13th chapter on we is looking at it. So, uh, but to come to that knowledge of myself, we are first understanding what is bondage. So it is actually for us very important for us to understand how we have gotten to where we are. But this um, this is how you can say, on one level I am that Purusha, but on a different level I'm the Jiva. Who is the jiva? Jiva is the person. The Purusha has taken up a body, and the Purusha with the body is now functioning in the world, and that is jiva. So, what is the relationship of that Purusha, which is me myself, and jiva, which is also me myself? Okay, is what in the shloka, which we are coming as Upadrashta, where I'm a spectator, I'm a sakshi, and Anumanta, as where I'm learning, uh, as a Upadrashta, I'm just a specter. We are, in the sort of a baby step of a spiritual life, you know. But then I'm also an Anumanta, where I'm learning the rudiments of what an ethical life is, and I'm able to distinguish between good and evil and all that. Then, as a Bharta, who am I? I'm a supporter. Okay. So with more and more maturity, I start to live this life and all this. Then as a bhokta, I become as, the jiva, which I'm the enjoyer. In the previous shloka, it says, right? The Purusha is the one who enjoys and who also experiences the sorrow. So we become more and more devoted to truth and we enjoy greater happiness and everything. And as a great Lord, the Lord who, the Saguna aspect of this one. So as a devotee, I come to a stage where my total individuality, there's no longer this delusory I, which is the root cause for everything what we're going through. That also melts. And I see myself from a greater cosmic angle. So I am that Maheshwara. And finally, when I'm even beyond this Maheshwara, I am that absolute self or the Paramatma. So all this is really how I need to think myself step by step. Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara, Paramatma. Okay. But what has happened is somehow that Purusha got intertwined with all the human upadhis of the body, mind, intellect, and everything. And the height that I'm hoping to achieve somehow, so this is basically just telling you step by step the height at which I can actually go to. But where I am today is I seem to be actually in a well. From the well, I have to climb up slowly and come out to being this Paramatma who I am. Okay. So basically, I just wanted to give this. So let's move on to, okay, so as Paraha, as I said, I made some notes as to why each one of the words, So Paraha, so is basically to say that it extends beyond Paraha, it extends beyond the body. For example, we say the space is in the hall, and because of which we are all accommodated and everything. But later on, I say that, the space is not only in the hall or this room here, the space is really outside the hall. So it is beyond the hall also, right? So, in some essence, we are trying to break the limitations within ourselves. Today, I think I'm the Sunitha who is housed within this physical body, mind, and intellect. So I am putting all these limitations. But Sunitha is also even beyond that. So if I can start to think about this one, so too, this um, consciousness is inside the body, and finally I can say that it is also paraha, it is outside the body. So paraha means basically free of any limitations. And then upadrashta basically is, it's a beautiful word. Suppose, like I say, this consciousness is a witness like the sun. So sun, for example, uh, we can think of as an upadrashta. The sun does everything for us. It's only because of sun we even have life on this earth, right? But the sun by itself doesn't do much. It's just there, it is shining, it is helping us, and therefore it is an illuminator, we can call that. So upadrashta, an illuminator here. And then anumanta. Anumanta basically is um, Hanumanta. So, not really like Hanumanta. In Tamil we have this word Hanumanta, but it's not like that. So here, this consciousness, it blesses the inert matter, and therefore, it is. And then we have Bharta, which is of course a supporter, and Bhokta, and then Maheshwaraha, again, which I explained here. So um, this kind of reminds us also of a very beautiful shloka which you have seen before, which is Kshetram Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetru Bharata Kshetra Kshetram Yor Jnanam Yatta Jnanam Matam Mama. So these are all very important shlokas of this 13th chapter, which really points us to the ultimate truth. So, having explained then who we are, now Krishna points out very clearly this knowledge that once I know the who I am from a Prakriti and a Purusha standpoint, this will really be such a relief from the burden of samsara. So far, whatever we've been going through has been, even though, of course, we go through so much of joys and everything, once in a while we get a little bit of sorrow, right? But if I'm able to detach myself from this notion of who I think I am, then I'll truly understand what is binding me and what is not allowing me to go towards my goal of moksha. Okay. So before we get into this 24 to 26, any questions or thoughts? Okay. So we'll move on to getting into really understand um, as to how we can go through this process of detachment. You know, this process of detachment will be better understood if I take a kind of this a look at what the karma theory is. Okay, so in the karma theory, we say that uh, basically starting with, we look at it from three types of karma. One is the sanchita karma, then we have the prarabdha karma, and then we have the agami karma, right? So these three types of karma. So sanchita karma is all these, the bank of desires that I have, and this bank is called the sanchita, which becomes actually the seed for future actions. And then the karmas that I'm experiencing now, that is the prarabdha karmas, right? So present life karma is the prarabdha karma, and this is one that gets activated in this life as we face certain situations, or sometimes the prarabdha also dictates what situation I'm going to face. So all this is prarabdha, and then expected whatever I'm then gaining here. So agami karmas are those karmas that will be generated due to the result of my actions today. So these then get added to the Sanchita karmas, and then the bank of Sanchita karmas then becomes big, right? So here Krishna says, the one who has properly understood that aspect of the karma theory, at the end of the day, and we can see this happening. It's just that, we don't pay attention to everything that we are doing. So we get so caught up in our actions. So we don't really understand that. But so Krishna is saying that the person who knows, ya evam veti purusham, okay, who truly understands this aspect, the relationship between the Purusha and the Prakriti. In a previous shloka, we said about how Prakriti is the one which is the modifications, all the six modifications which we said, Asti, Jayate, Viparimate, all that, and the gunas. Together with the qualities, he obtains freedom even from all rules of dharma. Sarvata vartaman api na saha bhuyah abhijayate. Such person is not born again. So, we said this particular phase is all about bondage, right? So that is why he says, who is the person who's born and who is the person who's dying, who is really continuing to be there. So it is that person who knows that this physical body is just another clothing I've taken in order to function in this world, and I know that I am beyond this. So ya evam veti purusham. So such a person who knows this very clearly, who has understood this relation of Purusha and Prakriti, one who has understood that, the identification of that Purusha with Prakriti due to ignorance. When we say ignorance, again, it is lack of alertness. Lack of alertness allows us to become attached to something, and this attached to something is a big thing, attached to our physical body, attached to an idea, attached to a certain opinion. All this is the ignorance part of it. And why is it happening? Because of the effect of all the gunas, right? Sattva, rajas, tamas. Such a person, if a person is able to detach themselves and understand who uh, our true identity is, such a person is never born again. So this means, that his stock of whole the sanchita karmas is destroyed. Just like, this example of roasted seeds, we talk about. All that Sanchita karmas is completely destroyed. He doesn't generate any more new desires. So there is no more agami karma that is being generated which can be added on. So then, and why does it not happen? Because ultimately he knows, he or she knows that it is all nothing but a play of this entire world is nothing but a play of the three gunas. So when one realizes that, every selfish desire is created by this ignorance of who my true nature, it wipes out literally any kind of actions which are prompted by the ego, actions which we would call as selfish actions. So when that doesn't happen, then ultimately the whole thing is, such a person is really not born again. So ya evam veti, such a person really understands, and it's really a huge relief, actually. So this is actually called as Purusha Prakriti, Viveka Jnanena Moksha. So this can happen only through Viveka. So once somebody understands this kind of a knowledge, okay, the first knowledge, of course, is that I'm a mixture of this Purusha and Prakriti. But later, that Paraha that we talked about, that not only I am that Purusha within, but I'm that Purusha outside also. And everything around me is nothing but Purusha. So, ya evam vedi, such a person, truly understands. And this beautiful shloka, which you all know, Name Dvesha Ragau, Name Lobha Moha, Madho Naiva Me Naiva Matsaryam Bhavaha, Na Dharmo Nachari. Beautiful shloka that we have chanted. The person who really understands this, who has understood this difference between Prakriti and Purusha, and one who has learned to train the mind to identify not with the dvesha, not with the raga, likes and dislikes, lobha, moha, what is in it for me, and this delusion, this maya. I am actually beyond all this. Shivoham, Shivoham. So this kind of a training, which is called, Nididhyasana, for all this, where I'm detaching myself completely for everything what I'm doing, that is what the shloka is trying to tell. Sarvataha vartamanopi. And once a person knows that this whole life is nothing but a drama, then what is the advantage from all this? Sarvataha vartamanopi. Let him play any kind of role in this one, because he understands that ultimately the life itself is a series of role playing. We cannot really avoid this. We have to play these roles. The moment we are born, whether I like it or not, I'm actually playing a role, because I've taken on these roles, because that is again my own desire. I wanted to come into this world. I wanted to play this role. So situations are created where all these things, but I am actually beyond this. So Krishna says, Sarvata Vartamanopi, you need not change your role if you're, doing some work or whatever. You don't even need to change your profession, nothing. No external change is required, only an inner transformation is required. And once a transformation is happening, any role, sarvata vartamanopi, any role we take will sabhuyo na abhijayate. So then there is no abhijayate, there is no rebirth at all. So again, indicating that, if I identify myself with that absolute reality, then I'm not born again. Whatever Sanchita, like again, whatever desires I would have accumulated or anything, none of those now have even a field to play out with. Everything gets burnt. And but if I identify myself with the role, then automatically the entire bank of Sanchita Karma is waiting to play out, and the I will gain more and more and more of desires because of my interest. So the idea is not to get attached to the role that we are playing today, and to be just nothing but that upadrashta, be a witness and to go through life. So any thoughts on that? So very clearly he's, given here in this, I'm just going through shloka again. the person who knows thus the spirit and matter together with its qualities. If I now recognize who I am, and if I recognize that it's only because of my identification with that matter, along with the matter when we say, because this entire world is nothing but a combination of sattva, rajas, tamas, then I obtain freedom even from all rules of dharma. Automatically, I'm I'm about this because I really know that there's nothing but a play of the gunas. And so a clear thing on really what is how I can get out of this samsara. So then he's giving some more assurances. Sa evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha sarvata vartamanopi same na bhuyo abhijayate. Okay, we did this. We did the whole thing. I think I put it again just as a kind of summary here to say that, such a person has sarvata or freedom from all dharma, a state where we are beyond all karmas. And such a person, lives in the same world as all of us, but merit, demerit, papa, punya, none of those, really affects him at all. And so for this reason, scriptures also, they do not impose any rules of any behavior upon such a person. The scriptures, they protect and they nurture him during his spiritual quest here. And so that is what this summary of the shloka is. So coming to shloka number 25. So Lord Krishna's exposition of really what this bondage is almost over. So he wants to sort of wind down the discussion from literally from 25 to 35 onwards. And so, on one hand, we have actually talked about the techniques such as Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga and everything. But on the other hand, we now also have seen how that Purusha um, sort of seems like there's a kind of a fall from where the Purusha is to getting involved with Prakriti and taking on the roles, etc. Right? So in this shloka 25 and the next one, we see that Krishna actually methodically connects these topics of this bondage again with Purusha and etc. So before we are ready to, kind of understand how we got to where we are with this avidya or ignorance, we need to first really understand how this attachment happened. How did this Purusha really get attached to these gunas of Prakriti? So, in some sense, we are trying to deal with we are, how we became very selfish, selfish in the sense doing things only with me in mind, I in mind, I and my, So, this technique depends upon really how this selfish depends on really the purity of our own self. So Krishna says that, in terms of this purity, even the most advanced seeker, who we would think is very, very pure, right, has really mastered this role of meditation. So they can directly sort of contact, contact in the sense not physical contact, but they can directly understand who they are. Okay. And so this actually this topic has come about quite a few times in the previous chapters, in the sixth chapter, etc. But sixth chapter specifically talks about this meditation, right? So this is what he's talking about here, starting with the word meditation, dhyana. So dhyanena atmani pashyanti, kechit atmanam atmana, anye sankhena yogena, karma yogena cha apare. So, he before really going into this the last part, which we talked about, those different phases, phase one, phase two, jnanam, jnayam, bondage, and finally the knowledge of the self. So before we get to that part, Krishna wants to make sure that, our foundation on how we are understanding this relation between Purusha and Prakriti, this foundation is like really strong. And he does this by telling us about the proper attitude which every seeker should have about the oneness, about the universality, you can say. So we're all different people. We're all bound to be of, various kind of desires, various kind of temperaments. All of us have this right to reach God. And this is again in one of the earlier chapters, we talked about the four kind of seekers who are reaching God. So in this bondage and liberation actually is very scientific in the sense it caters to all kinds of people. There is no one cookie cutter method itself. So that is why, the four dhyanena atmani pashyanti. So there are many different paths in which you can actually go, and that is what he's trying to say here. One of them, is by the yoga of meditation, dhyanena atmani pashyanti. And so it is by this method of bringing the mind in control through various disciplines. In Patanjali Yoga, you have the Ashtanga Yoga, through Yama, Niyama, Dhyana, of course, is then Asana, Pranayama, etc. So Dharana, all these aspects. Then Sankhya Yoga, Kechit Atmanam Atmana. Anye Sankhya Yogena. Others only through Sankhya Yoga, through the path of not the philosophies of Sankhya. That is not where Sankhya basically means the path of knowledge through Dhyana Yoga. And then some people do through Karma Yogena cha apare. So some people do it by the path of Karma Yoga. So that is what he's trying to do. Atmani Pashyanti, which we have seen again before. The ultimate goal for us is, at the end of the day, even though Atman is not pervading, but Atma is also available within one's body. Therefore, I need not go looking for Atma somewhere else. I only have to discover this Atmani Pashyanti. I have to discover the Atma in myself. Therefore, Atmani means like within oneself. In Taittiriya Upanishad, Yo Veda Nikhitam Guhayam, I can discover this Atman in the cave of my heart. So this is what he's trying to say here. And so the preparatory steps for this one, which we said, Karma Yoga, then Upasana Yoga. Literally, karma is one part, upasana through meditation, and then through Vedanta Shravanam. Only when um, these are really the first preparatory steps. Am I doing my karma yoga very well? I have to watch within myself. Am I doing things where I'm not looking for any kind of what is in it for me kind of actions? Then am I spending some time to really understand this? Who am I? Purusha versus Prakriti, that aspect of it. So this is what he's trying to say. And then finally, Vedanta Shravanam, then Mananam, and finally Nididhyasanam. So Mananam, of course, what is where I'm really trying to internalize this knowledge. So I'm not accepting everything as a blind belief. I'm really trying to understand this very well. So removal of any kind of doubts is what Mananam is all about. So it is truly, something where I'm having a debate within myself. Do I really understand this? Is this something I really have to go through all this? So that is the Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So karma yogena apare pashyanti anye sankhena yogena. So that is 25. And finally, the last shloka, what we wanted to do here is like it's like this. So whenever, we want to learn something, we actually um, do two things. Of course, today, I mean, the amount of ads that I see for cursive, or you may also have seen, the AI tools, especially if you're above 40 or if you're 50, you have to learn this AI tools kind of thing. Oh my God, in Facebook, you're bombarded by these ads, right? So we either, try to listen to what the Facebook ads are trying to tell us, or we try to read some book which is written by an expert. So we try to actually put this 28-day plan, and slowly we begin to understand the AI tools, and we become an expert, right? So all this is possible, like even with all this AI tools, like I was saying, where I have to go through that journey of 28 days. I spend the 15 minutes per day learning one tool after the other, practicing them, having complete shraddha even to that one, right? So it is all possible only when I have the faith, and when I'm very, very carefully, diligently following every instruction on how Gemini works, or how Claude works, or so many others. I mean, I think we have to start memorizing all these AI tools now. This it's too many tools coming up. I mean, nowadays the tool is already saying, okay, if you know Chat GPT, you're already old. Learn something which is new, right? So but compared to all that, this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which will never go old, and if we introduce, and again, I don't know, maybe I'm on Facebook too much, I think, but I saw one of these reels where um, this mother, this 12-year-old goes to his mother and says, Amma, how do I see that I'm getting very angry with my friends in school. So this mother is at a loss, what do I do now? Is there any kind of a pill I can give to cure this disease or something? And then lo and behold, the ad comes up saying Bhagavad Gita for kids. So they're coming up with beautiful books on Bhagavad Gita, which is even for kids. So this kind of a satsang is needed. So Krishna is saying that, even if you're not qualified to follow any of those four yogas that we talked about here, we really don't have to worry. We can obtain the same result of these techniques if we find a proper guru, okay? And we follow the path prescribed by them. So it's like, if a doctor gives you a list of foods to avoid eating and you will not improve your health. So for us too, we must become a Shruti Parayanaha. That's what he's saying. You have to look at these teachings, what Bhagavad Gita is saying, and make it as an integral part of our lives. So then, if we do that, what is the result from us? This, then we can actually overcome the biggest thing that we all are afraid of. I'm reminded of the Seinfeld joke. Seinfeld's joke is, I mean, I think we all can relate to Seinfeld because we used to enjoy this 20 years ago or something. Seinfeld would say that, the only more bigger thing that people are afraid of, um, apart from death, is actually public speaking. You know, so be that as it may, how much of public speaking are we all going to really think about doing or practicing, right? But death is something we will definitely face, and something that we need to know how to handle this. And so the shloka 26, he says about how if I know what moksha is, what liberation is, then death is not an important thing at all. Death is only, loss of another physical body here, you know. And every time when I get fascinated by this outside world, by the next update, what iPhone is coming up with or anything, and I have to watch myself, it's not that I cannot indulge in it, because I know that is my previous prarabdha karma which is playing out. But if it doesn't work out, if for whatever reason I buy the phone, I lose it immediately, I should not really worry about it. So that, because I am beyond all this. So each time when we forget our own true nature as that absolute reality and I rush out into this world for any of the fascinating thing, I'm actually, um, uh, I really don't know what death is. And therefore, Krishna says that, just follow the Guru. And that is why he says, Anye tvam ajanantaha shrutvan anyebhya upasate te api cha ati taranti eva mrityum shruti parayanaha. So others also who have not known this but who have heard it from others, they too begin to worship, and even they have crossed beyond death, having faith in what they have heard. So this aspect of Hinduism, which is really, for us, it is not a surprise, right? We all know that at the end of the day, this is what it is all about. Uh, but here he is trying to say that even for somebody who has really a dull head, you know, even for that person, if that person has faith and if on the Guru or on the Shrutis, even they have definitely, they will go beyond. There is no such thing as sin. There is no such thing as that, you're bad or whatever. This is available for everybody. Anye tut evam ajanataha. So others also who have not known this, but have heard it from others, they too have they too are capable of going beyond. So it is already 7. So Mrityum Taranti Eva Saha. So in these two shlokas, Krishna is now covered in this 25-26, the types of, we covered all the various paths, the 4 paths. Then we covered also that everybody has the possibility to go ahead. So from Shloka 27, next week, we'll start a new topic. Okay. Any final thoughts or thing somebody wants to share? Anand?
Harvam, one question.
Yeah,
Like in the chapter Prakriti and Purusha,
yeah,
Purusha and Prakriti. So Prakriti is the matter. That's how what
Prakriti
the
is matter, yes.
explanation goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen Prakriti as Maya. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's in a different probably in another chapter.
Correct.
So okay, I mean, how do I
So here,
correlate? I mean,
right. So here the word Prakriti especially has been brought in to bring this relation of how this downfall for all of us have happened, in the sense, at the end of the day, we all are that Purusha, that absolute reality. That same reality has taken the roles and is now playing out in this world of matter. Therefore, this word of Prakriti has been brought, you know. The word Maya is also another word for Prakriti is Maya. Maya is, one may say, the definition is brought out more to show how that fascination is happening. Something which is actually not there. But English is so, it's so hard to explain everything in English. Here, something which is not there immediately doesn't mean that whatever I am, we equate something which is there only by physically seeing everything, right? But in our scriptures, we believe, because we believe beyond this gross material world, that we are also the subtle aspect of us. In that subtle aspect, so Maya is just to show that how we look at the whole world in a very magic way and we get attached to it. So
so and
that's
the
how I would equate
snake rope
Prakriti.
example is
Correct,
taken.
exactly. Is a very good example. Yes.
Okay, that explains. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hari Om. So Prakriti also means the world, correct? There is one more.
Correct. The world of matter. The world of matter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So where did the Prakriti come from? The Prakriti is also part of that reality where Purusha himself has taken on the role of the individual aspects and is playing out in this world. Okay. And that same Purusha is also that Upadrashta and everything we talked about. So,
Okay.
in one of the previous shlokas, maybe 21 or something, where the modifications, the six modifications and the gunas, all that is part of Prakriti.
Mm.
So, that way, Prakriti is a cause for all that. But what is the cause for Prakriti? It is that Purusha.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ